That's it. So like I said, that whole story you can hear the audio edition of if you go to craphound.com and then click on the podcast link. It's in about 9 parts with terrible audio engineering, courtesy of my audio engineering skills. I guess if there are any questions, we can do a couple of questions and then we can move on to the next part of the program. Is anyone? And I'm part of the next program, so I'll just hang here. Are there any other questions?
Okay, questions.
No, yes, maybe. That's cool. It's a story. There's a question behind you. Yeah?
Do you want a cough drop?
If it's the kind of cough drop that I can take more than every 2 hours, for sure. I bought these like lethal Austrian cough drops at an apotheke, and they said like don't take more than 1 every 2 hours or you'll turn into a werewolf. So I've been like sticking to just 1 every 2.
It's just like a sweet, you know, like it makes.
I'd love one. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Jake, you had a question.
Talk about your business model or how you give away this wonderful writing for free.
So the business model, how do I give away writing for free? Well, for starters, no one makes any money from short fiction. So like giving it away for free is what you do even if you sell it to a magazine. Like for sufficiently large values of free, right? Like Asimov's science fiction magazine pays 3 to 6 cents a word. And those are, thank you, Ricola, Swiss. The neutral cough drops. So, you know, like, when we're talking about, like, 3 cents a word measured in American pesos and then spent in Europe, I live in London, it might as well be free. As far as novels go, you do get some money for them, and for that, I think right now we're in a moment in history where if you get a free electronic book and you like it, a substantial portion of the people who like the electronic book buy the print book because they're complimentary to have. And printing costs are high rather. Self-printing a book is fairly expensive for most of the people in the parts of the world where my books are published. And it's also a pain in the ass. And so those people then go out and buy print books. And so far that's worked spectacularly well. 600,000 copies of my first novel have been distributed electronically from my site, along with an untold number of copies distributed from other people's websites, and the book's just gone into its 6th printing. So it seems to me that at this moment in history, the more books you give away, the more money you make. The biggest threat to most authors isn't piracy, it's obscurity. Right? 99 5/9 of the people who don't buy my book, the reason they don't buy it isn't because a pirate gave them a substitute good for free, it's because they've never heard of it. And so, you know, expanding the audience actually expands the paying audience, even if the majority of people who I expand the audience to don't actually ever give me money. It's still, if I can capture like a tiny fraction of that 99 5/9 of people who don't buy my book because they've never heard of it, I'm doing pretty good. In the long term, I think that it's pretty likely that that business model will kind of go away, because I think that more people will read off screens and screens will get better, but I also think just people will become more accustomed to reading off screens. We've just been talking, I've forgotten your name, I'm really sorry. Stefan and I have been talking about what happens in Romania, where science fiction fans read novels if they've been uploaded to the internet, right? You know, scanned in and retyped and uploaded to the internet, because the physical goods take a long time to reach Romania. And also they're really expensive if they're imported goods. And those people where there's like not a print alternative for a contemporary new release science fiction don't really bother much about reading off the screen. I think they're like the leading edge. I think that'll be what everyone does eventually. And when that happens, we're going to have to figure out how to make a living, because it's going to be really hard to control the copying of our works, because computers are machines for copying, and making computers that don't copy well is making computers that don't work well. Right? It's like making radios that don't transmit sound, or making, you know, cars that don't drive. You know, like making computers that don't copy is like, it's a contradiction, right? So when that happens, we're going to have to figure out what that business model is, and the way to figure that out is to watch really closely what people do with electronic text and figure out where you can get some money from it. And it's not to like kind of fold your arms and demand that the world reconfigure itself into a more hospitable configuration, or to like call your customers thieves, right? Like I can't think of I started a couple of relatively successful businesses, and you know, one I sold and one, you know, I'm still working on going and stuff. And like I've never seen a business that succeeded by starting by calling its customers thieves, right? I can't imagine, especially when there's like an infinitude of choice. Like you can read a science fiction novel, or for about the same amount of money, you can play a month of World of Warcraft. And like in World of Warcraft, you get to talk to people. And and you can like have social interaction with people, and you can make friends, and like sometimes you meet cute people of the opposite sex, or just sometimes you make lifelong friendships, or sometimes you get to enhance your daily social living. And like with a novel, all you get to do is read it. So like or maybe have cosplay from it or something. So I totally believe that we compete with media that's a lot more compelling in many instances than books, and like putting barriers ahead of getting books is just the craziest thing I can imagine. Because I think that one of the only things that gives me hope for science fiction in the future is that people care enough about it to pirate it, right? Like if I were like a romance writer or a mainstream novelist whose works, whose whole genre doesn't appear anywhere on the internet, which is of course where like the entire future is being played out like 10 years ahead of schedule, I'd be shit scared, right? Like the fact that my medium is interesting enough to people who are like the kind of people who adopt internet technology to rip off means that I probably have some kind of future. Otherwise, I'd be like, looking for other work. Yeah. If Pepsi paid me when I plugged them in a book, probably wouldn't plug Pepsi. I might plug someone else though. I don't know if that would be like a viable business model. I'd totally be transparent about it though. I wouldn't ever not do that. I mean, I'm trying to think. I did write. No, I mean I've had magazines pay me to write, like business magazines paid me to write short stories, like Business 2.0 paid me to write a story about a bunch of themes that were in their magazine, but it wasn't to plug a product specifically. And I just did a back of the book for Nature magazine, the Holdspring magazine in Britain, which is like a competitor of The New Scientist, where it's like a one-page short science fiction story that I think it mentions some products, and it's kind of set in the same world as The Siege, but it's not, I didn't actually take a plug, but I don't know if that would make a good story or a bad story. If it made a good story, and if I didn't fool anyone about it, and I didn't think the product was bad, I wouldn't have any compunction about it. I don't think that there's enough money in plugging stories in science fiction to make it worth anyone's while, though. I mean, I totally think that, we'd be talking about, like, the difference between whether I can buy 2 lattes today or 1. Like, it would be, like, I don't mind being a whore, I just don't want to be a cheap one. Yeah. Is there a future for print? Totally. Bruce Sterling just wrote this great book called Shaping Things for MIT Press about the kind of past and future of devices, manufacturing, and industry. And he has this great quote in it, which is that the future composts the past, right? So like oil painting isn't gone, but like oil painting has been subsumed in some ways into all kinds of new forms of visual expression. And like print will always be around, but I have a feeling that print will stratify almost kind of, it'll be like American society. It'll be the very rich print and the very poor print, right? No middle print. But right now, like everything's in print, right? It's kind of like the default. Like if you have some information, you make a book out of it and bind it and kind of shovel it out the door, right? Like we just ship around trees as kind of the default mechanism for conveying information. And I think what we'll have is like throwaway print. It'll be like, I need this, the way we do today. I need this Google map, right? I need this article to read on the toilet. We sat behind a woman on the plane from London who was doing a Sudoku printed out from Yahoo, right? I need this totally disposable piece of information. When I'm done, I'm going to ball it up and throw it in a recycling bin, or like, contribute it to a landfill or something. And then at the high end, we'll have like, this book was like printed on 100% cotton paper using techniques developed by Belgian monks in the year 1600, and bound in like fetal calfskin, and the cover was like etched by like and it'll be like an artifact, right? And then like all the stuff in the middle, I think it'll just go away. Like I don't think quotidian information will be conveyed on trees. I think carving words on trees is a really slow and bad way of conveying kind of generic reference information. There's one other genre of books that people bother to pirate on the internet: computer manuals. Because like computer manuals are way better when they're searchable, right? Any other questions? Should we move into the next part of the program?